Okay, so today is November the 22nd, 2024. Let's get into a little news. It seems that we have a very powerful, how can I say this? Black America's in shock, particularly, pertaining to Donald Trump's cabinet picks. So let me get into some of my notes and then we're going to go into it. Okay, it said Trump cabinet appointees. Despite the surge of black voters, the new Republicans is what I call them, Trump has failed to deliver in his cabinet picks a more inclusive representation of the Republican voter bloc. Black conservatives across the board, overwhelmingly en masse, came out in support of the Trump presidency. Their hopes of a more inclusive regime where their interests would be represented by having a seat at the table, a cliche term, has been shattered into broken glass. Not only has Trump, who he never promised them that he was going to represent them with a seat at the table, but this is what they thought in their own illusions, right? Or their own delusional thinking. Not only has Trump, who never promised to represent their interests or the interests of the new Republicans by providing them with demographic representation, appointed all whites. But not only did he appoint all whites, the whites who thus far have been selected for appointment in cabinet are all arch neocons of the worst type. Okay, so I've been hearing a lot of stuff lately. A lot of black folks calling themselves conservatives, and they represent the conservative order and all that kind of stuff. See, I understand what conservatism is, but black folks who espouse that type of philosophy, they don't know what they're talking about. So let's get into a definition of what conservatism in political terms mean. Okay, so this right here is a term that's out. It's on Wikipedia. Right? And it was a lot of definitions that I could have went to, but I chose this one right here. So let's look at what conservatism is in the context of politics, specifically politics in America. Conservatism is a cultural, social, and political philosophy and ideology that seeks to promote and preserve traditional institutions, customs, and values. The central tenets of conservatism may vary in relation to the culture and civilization in which it appears. In Western culture, depending on the particular nation, conservatives seek to promote and preserve a range of institutions, such as the nuclear family, organized religion, the military, the nation state, property rights, rule of law, aristocracy, and the monarchy. Conservatives tend to favor institutions and practices that enhance, listen to this, that enhance social order and historical continuity. Historical continuity. Are we talking about the continuity of slavery? Are we talking about the continuity of colonialism, imperialism? So, black conservatism is nothing more than a preservation of neocolonialism and the international rules-based order. So there's a lot of talk, particularly, amongst young black men that, they like to refer to themselves now as conservatives. What are you conservative? Let's not forget that what we know as the African American was introduced into the United States under the institution of slavery. Once slavery was abolished, Jim Crow, a form of apartheid, was instituted in America. Donald Trump never said he was going to represent your interests. He never said that. He did ask for your vote, which you gave to him. So His administration, his regime, is overwhelmingly white, and they represent conservative values of the past. They don't represent your interests unless your interest is preserving the old social order. So you cannot get angry with Donald Trump for not appointing blacks to his administration. He never promised you that in the first place. It would be different if he ran on a platform that he was going to include blacks into his administration, but he never told you that. So, in your mind, you thought you were going to get a seat at the table, but in order to have a seat at the table, you have to have some type of power. You just can't be a pauper, the poor sparrows, and come and think that you're going to get an equal seat at the table of power. It doesn't work that way. But let's get into this one particular video. And I'm inside the laundromat, so you're going to hear a lot of background noise, but hopefully you guys can get around that. I'm at my boy's laundromat again. I was watching it, he went home early, so I was watching it until, the second shift showed up. But let's get into this CNN interview.
Yet there are some spots to fill.
Let me back
now,
it
to be
up.
clear,
we should ask Donald Trump. You talked about black men.
This is Al Sharpton
Where's
talking.
a black man being nominated by you for your cabinet? Has anyone noticed there's no black that has been nominated on his cabinet? That needs to be raised.
Okay, so
Reverend Al.
let me stop it right there. Okay, so first of all, Reverend Al Sharpton is a known and admitted FBI agent. He should never, ever be allowed to walk around the black community unmolested. He is a known FBI informant. He admitted to being an FBI informant. He gave up information on the mafia. So he does not represent, or maybe he does, but I don't know. Maybe he does represent the interests of the black community, but he is a known FBI informant. He should be treated as such. His word means nothing in some of our eyes. But let's get on, and he's one of their frontline lapdogs for the Democrats. He's one of their paid, he's a paid sponsor to come out in the black community and organize the black vote around the Democratic Party. They failed this time because, the Republicans are back in power. But let's get into this interview on CNN.
Sharpton criticizing President-elect Donald Trump for not nominating an African-American member for any cabinet position, I should say, yet. There are some spots to fill. Now, to be clear, he has picked some diverse candidates to be part of his overall team and also in his cabinet. But again, as of now, there's yet to be a black American picked for a cabinet-level slot. Joining me now, one of Trump's top allies on the Hill, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida. Congressman, you have been a very vocal and effective surrogate for Trump and for his campaign and, frankly, the Republican Party. What is your response to this criticism?
I think it's criticism where people are upset that they still lost this election. And so if you were going to ask Reverend Al or anybody else in the Democrat Party, they're still licking their wounds about the fact that this did not work out the way that they thought it was going to. That being...
Okay, so he deflected. He's saying that being that the black Democrats or the Democratic Party lost in the national elections, that they're angry, right? So he's providing cover for the fact that Donald Trump, who had a surge in black votership, has failed to appoint any black, as of yet, to any high cabinet within the upcoming administration. See, these are the type of blacks who want to conserve the old social order. They don't care about egalitarian distribution of power and wealth. They don't even care about having a seat at the table, as you hear coming out of this guy's mouth, right? Their only concern is lining their own pockets with the crumbs that fall off the table. Yes, black Democrats and the Democratic voter bloc, yes, they're angry that they lost the election. Okay, but there was a surge of support from the black community for the Republican Party, particularly Donald Trump. Now, with that being the case, Donald Trump should have enough wherewithal about himself to appoint blacks into his administration. That should have been some of the first moves he made. He should have appointed blacks to high cabinet offices, but he has yet to do so because, again, if we look at the definition of conservatism, they want to conserve traditional rules, values, and institutions. And in America, what does we know that as? We know that as white supremacy. So this is what they're doing. So let's continue with the interview.
Said Donald Trump's cabinet is about people who are going to implement his agenda. And he's not done, by the way. You have Susie Wiles, the first woman ever to serve
He's an
as chief of
apologist.
staff. You have Marco Rubio, a Cuban American who's going to serve as Secretary of State,
Nothing to do with the black
representing
community.
America across the globe when it comes to foreign policy. You have Tulsi Gabbard going to be at DNI. So many others that are coming, and there's still slots to be filled. So I think everybody needs to pump the brakes and just wait and see what happens.
Do you think Democrats are putting form over substance?
Absolutely. Look, even if you look at how the Democrats filled the Joe Biden cabinet, they wanted to have a piece of every identity, but did they get the job done? Did they actually serve the interest of the American people? Because here's what I know. Whether you black or Hispanic, if the border is unsecure, Alejandro Mayorkas, if the border is unsecure, does that help people in their everyday lives? No, it does not. And so
There's more going on in America than unsecured borders. But he immediately went to the border.
what Donald Trump's election is about is bringing competency and reality back to D.C. in the White House, making sure that the job gets done on behalf of the American people, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their creed.
Do you think that the current cabinet picks reflect the most competent implementers of Trump's policy across the board?
100%.
Because you have no pause for any of the people who are being raised, including some who are more controversial figures who've gotten a lot of the oxygen out of the room. Obviously, Matt Gaetz, a centerpiece of criticism because of the allegations. But you don't have any pause about anyone who's been chosen?
No, I don't, because either I know them directly or I've gotten a chance to know them throughout the last several months. All of them subscribe to everything that Donald Trump talked about on the campaign trail. They are mission-minded about getting the job done. Look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to make America healthy again. He wants to go after additives in our food that are here in the United States, but not in any other country around the globe. You have suburban mothers who want to see that happen for their children. You have people who've had to deal with all kind of other health abnormalities, and at the time...
In the black community, we don't care about health abnormalities. That is not the focal point of the issues in the black community. So this guy right here, who is a Republican, his name is, let's get his name. He's a Republican
now what they're
from
dealing
Florida.
with is going to other doctors, finding other alternatives to address those health issues, finding out it's what they're ingesting every single day. He's going to address that. You have somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who has not been a fan of Forever Wars, which, by the way, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you've not been a fan of Forever Wars. She's going to be
Outright lie. Outright lie. That is an outright lie. This government right here is run by neocons. They are advocates of forever wars. So he's outright misleading the public when he says that. Joe Biden and the Democratic administration could have avoided the war in Ukraine. They could have avoided that war in Gaza. They did not. They doubled down and they've intensified their efforts to usher in World War III. Let's continue.
advising him when it comes to national intelligence. These are the picks that he's put in who are going to actually help him implement his agenda. His success as president, this is the 47th president, is going to be on addressing all the concerns of the American people that obviously they had, because if they didn't have that, he wouldn't have the political mandate he's enjoying right now.
Well, let me ask you, because I remember when your name came up as a potential Speaker of the House. There were many who speculated that based on the prominent role you played in this campaign and election, that your name would have skyrocketed to at least the front of the line. We are several cabinet picks in. Are you not surprised that you have not been named? Have you had a conversation about being a part of the administration at all?
All I will say is I am not surprised that I have not been named, but that does not mean I'm not going to.
You know why he's not surprised that he's not been named? Because he's a black conservative. And black conservatism, like white conservatism, seeks to conserve or preserve the old social order. In this particular instance, we're talking about white supremacy. They don't care about egalitarian distribution of power within the administration, not the black conservatives. They only care about lining their pockets with the crumbs that fall off the table. So yes, no, he's not surprised.
Do other things in the future.
Has he asked you?
No, there's some other things that I'm looking at going forward. I'm
Like?
not going to talk about them now.
He's not going to talk
every
about
time.
it.
We're not going to break news now.
I would like to
Laura.
ask you,
We're not
Governor
gonna break
of
news.
Florida, Senator, perhaps if Marco Rubio is confirmed, or any of those spots enticing to you?
We'll see what happens as things go forward.
Do you have support for the name Laura Trump that's been circling around as a potential person who would step in if Senator Marco Rubio were to ascend to the role that he has been chosen for?
So actually, I think Laura would do a great job as a U.S. Senator for Florida. I got a chance to really know her through the whole campaign process. Number one, excellent communicator, one of the best in our party. Number two, really knowledgeable about policy. Number three, her personal businesses that she's been involved with, different projects that she's done. She knows how to get things done, bring people around her to.
Okay, so we'll end that interview right there. But again, this Florida representative, he knows his position within the power structure of the system. His position is one of subservience. That's his position. That is the position of black conservatism when they talk about, call themselves black conservatives. They want to conserve and preserve the old social order. It is, when you look at the black middle class has never, ever demanded an equal distribution of power, wealth, and access to the means and modes of production. That's not the role they're playing. Their only role, or the only role that they play within this particular power structure, is one of paternalism and being subservient to the true power players in high offices and of the ruling classes. So you get what you ask for. You get what you ask for. See, when you embrace terms and ideologies that you have no understanding of, then your vision begins to blur with reality. The black middle class, the conservatives of the black middle class, thought that by jumping on the Trump bandwagon, the Republican Party bandwagon, that they were going to be represented. Now, again, we're early on into this. Right? I mean, the elections just happened. Donald Trump has just been reelected. But again, you see the power dynamics within modern American society. And I think if Trump continues on this course, that this might be the whitest administration that I remember in my lifetime. I'm 51 years old, and I never remembered an administration this white. So, regardless of what this guy talking about, he picked a few others from, different races. Those people don't represent the black community. I told the black community they should have set it out. You had no stake in this election right here. I mean, American politics, American elections are a Hollywood drama. That's it and that's all. The true power lies within the ruling class. Regardless, irrespective of what political party they throw out there, what presidential candidate they throw out there, all candidates, all parties in this society are going to bend to the will of those with the true power. And that power lies within the hands of the American and Western ruling classes. So you played yourself again. Me personally, I don't care about the Democrats or the Republicans. They don't represent the interests of my people. When I say my people, I'm not talking about black Americans. I'm saying my people, right? So let's move on into the next big story that broke out within the last 48 hours, which is the ICJ indictment, or of the ICJ indictment of Benjamin jackbooted thug Netanyahu. So let's bring this article up and we'll read. Yeah, outside. Yeah. We're going to read a little of this article here in relation to the arrest warrant that has been issued for Benjamin Netanyahu, if I can find it. Again, you know, like I said, I'm on a new tablet, so I'm trying to learn the functions of the tablet itself. So it's going to take me just a little bit longer. ICJ arrest warrant. Okay, so this right here is coming up out of the DW. Okay, so it says ICC arrest warrant against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There's a lot of noise coming up out of here today. I'm going to have to make this a short video. I should have known better than to try to make a video inside of the laundromat. But it say judges at the International Criminal Court, the ICC, have requested arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. They are accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. In doing so, the ICC has rejected Israel's previous challenge to the court's jurisdiction, specifying that Israel's acceptance of the court's jurisdiction was not required. Now, Israel, as well as America, is not a signee of the ICC, meaning that they don't recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. I mean, America has war criminals. We can go all the way back. I mean, we can go back decades, and they have war criminals inside their administrations. So, of course, they're not going to sign on to the ICC. Specifically, the ICC stated there were reasonable grounds to suggest that Netanyahu and Gallant bore criminal responsibility for applying starvation as a method of warfare and for crimes against humanity in the form of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. The court also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas leaders Ibrahim al-Masri, also known as Mohammed Death. Now, they told us that Death was dead, but they never showed us conclusive evidence specifically scientifically showing that Death is dead. You know, that's one eye, for those who don't know. The court also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas leaders Ibrahim al-Masri, also known as Mohammed Death, for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity related to the Islamist militant group's October 7, 2023 attacks on Israel. Charges leveled against al-Masri include murder, torture, sexual violence, and hostage taking, among other things. Now, where they get this sexual violence from is beyond me. I mean, even the hostages themselves, no one has reported they were sexually assaulted by members of Hamas. But, you know, I guess they had to throw that in there to give the indictment more potency. I don't know. Previous arrest warrants against former Hamas leaders Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh have been withdrawn following the confirmation of their killings by Israeli forces. Israel claims to have killed al-Masri, but Hamas has neither confirmed nor denied this. I don't think one eye is dead, me personally. What type of criminal case did the ICC bring against Netanyahu? That's the question. The International Criminal Court only investigates individuals and becomes active when a person is suspected of being responsible for one of four core crimes: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and starting a war of aggression. The ICC has been looking into possible war crimes committed by Israel since 2021. At the same time, the court has also been investigating similar accusations leveled against Hamas fighters. Investigations are also currently ongoing with regard to acts of violence committed by Israel settlers in the occupied West Bank. Now we're going to stop right there. This, not only the indictment, but the actual issuing of an arrest warrant, this is huge. Because at one point, Israel and its jackbooted thugs, the administration of Israel, they were untouchable. Now, will this arrest warrant have any effect? I don't know. I doubt very seriously that anyone, any country in the West, would dare place Benjamin Netanyahu under arrest as a result of this ICC arrest warrant. Now, I know we have, Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister. He says that Canada is a signee of the ICC treaty, and that if Netanyahu shows up in Canada, that he will in fact be arrested. But this is how I see it. Benjamin Netanyahu is a slithery snake. He's not going to place himself in danger. So he's not going to travel to any country where he could possibly be arrested. So he's going to hide in Israel and, travel back and forth to the mainland being America itself. Israel and America, they're one and the same. There's no difference. He's going to travel back and forth between Israel and the mainland, and his chances of being arrested are slim to none. Now, maybe if he step into one of these countries that are a signee, one of the Western countries, Ireland, countries like that, Netanyahu he's made some enemies in the West, but he's going to be smart enough and slippery enough not to travel to those countries where he would face being arrested. So I thought that was huge news that, the people need to know about. The untouchable Israel is being touched, and Benjamin Netanyahu and the crimes that he and his jackbooted thug administrators have committed, at some point, justice will be served. Now let's move into the last article that I'm gonna do today. And again, once I get better with this tablet, then my information it'll be much more precise. But let's get into the most recent developments in the Ukrainian war, right? And let's go to a transcript of President Putin's speech that he delivered to Russian citizens yesterday. Okay, so Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. Some people now they refer to him as Angry Joe, the angry old man in the White House. He granted permission to the Kyiv regime in Ukraine, President Zelensky, I call him Zelensky, that's what I call him, Zelensky. He granted the Ukrainian government permission to use ATACMS missiles to strike deep within Russian territory. And in fact, the Ukrainians did just that. President Putin, in response, Putin and the Russian military launched a previously unknown, at first everybody was thinking that it was an ICBM, but it wasn't an ICBM, it was a more short-range hypersonic missile that can be equipped with nuclear warheads that they launched against targets in Ukraine. And I saw, if what I saw was what I saw, and what I saw it. Those missiles were moving so fast. I didn't even have time to count 1 second as they was landing on targets off inside of Ukraine. Okay, so let us get into some of his speech. And this right here is gonna contravene what people believe Donald Trump is capable of doing. Donald Trump is not capable of ending the war in Ukraine. He's not capable because the war in Ukraine is much bigger than the office of presidency. This is a war between the ruling classes. So let me get into Putin's speech. Okay, so this particular article appears in Le Monde. I don't know where. Lemonde. I don't know where this newspaper is. To me, it sounds French, but who knows? Okay, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the nation on Thursday evening, November the 21st, to respond to days of escalation in the Ukraine conflict. He said Moscow had fired a new generation intermediate range missile on Ukraine and warned that the conflict was taking on a global character. Now, I already said that we were in the beginning. I already said that World War III already started. It's only the people in America who, they've been lied to by their media. They don't understand that World War III has already started. The black community surely doesn't understand that World War III has started. We are in World War III. Let there be no mistake about it. You have North Korean troops that are stationed in Ukraine. That's from another nation, right? You have all kind of Western advisors from all of the NATO blocs that are stationed in Ukraine. That is a world war. We have the situation that's done broke out in Africa. The West being kicked out, and the Russians and the Chinese are being invited in. The expansion of BRICS, de-dollarization of the US dollar. That is a world war. So let's get to it. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the nation on Thursday evening, November the 21st, to respond to days of escalation in the Ukraine conflict. He said Moscow had fired a new generation of intermediate range missiles on Ukraine and warned that the conflict was taking on a global character. Below is the full transcript of his speech as published on the Kremlin English website, a Version website. I would like to inform the military personnel of the Russian Federation of Armed Forces, citizens of our country, our friends across the globe, and those who persist in the illusion that a strategic defeat can be inflicted upon Russia about the events taking place today in the zone of the special military operations, specifically following the attacks by Western long-range weapons against our territory. The escalation of the conflict in Ukraine, instigated by the West, continues with the United States and its NATO allies previously announcing that they authorized the use of their long-range, high-precision weapons for strikes inside the Russian Federation. Experts, he's talking about American experts, people inside the Pentagon. Experts are well aware, and the Russian side has repeatedly highlighted it, that the use of such weapons is not possible without the direct involvement of military experts from the manufacturing nations. Now remember, ATACMS have been fired and Storm Shadows have been fired. So listen to what this man is talking about. On November the 19th, 6 ATACMS, tactical ballistic missiles, produced by the United States, and on November the 21st, during a combined missile assault involving British Storm Shadow systems and HIMARS systems produced by the United States, attacked military facilities inside the Russian Federation in the Bryansk and Kursk regions. From that point onward, as we have repeatedly emphasized in prior communications, the regional conflict in Ukraine provoked by the West has assumed elements of a global nature. Our air defense systems successfully counteracted these incursions, preventing the enemy from achieving their apparent objectives. He said enemy. Okay. And there is some type of pay page over this, so I can't read the first sentence. And the Bryansk region, caused by debris of attack of missiles, was extinguished without casualties or significant damage. In the Kursk region, the attack targeted. In the Kursk region, the attack. Okay, so this again, we got this pay page just jumping all over the place. These damn these advertisement ads. Okay, so now I can read it. Okay, the fire at the ammunition depot in the Bryansk region caused by debris of attacking missiles was extinguished without casualties or significant damage. In the Kursk region, the attack targeted one of the command posts of our group north. Regrettably, the attack and the subsequent air defense battle resulted in casualties, both fatalities and injuries among the perimeter security units and servicing staff. However, the command and operational staff of the control center suffered no casualties and continues to manage effectively the operation of our forces to eliminate and push enemy units out of the cursed region. I wish to underscore once again that the use by the enemy of such weapons cannot affect the course of combat operations in the special military zone. Our forces are making successful advancements along the entire line of contact, and all objectives we have set will be accomplished. In response to the deployment of American and British long-range weapons on November the 21st, the Russian armed forces delivered a combined strike on a facility within Ukraine's defense industrial complex. In field conditions, we also carried out tests of one of Russia's latest medium-range missile systems, in this case carrying a non-nuclear hypersonic ballistic missile that our engineers named Orezhnik. The test was successful, achieving the intended objective of the launch. In the city of, when these Russians, I got some words now. Okay, it says, okay, in the city of Dnepro-Risk, of course I tore that word up, Ukraine, one of the largest and most famous industrial complexes from the Soviet Union era, which continues to produce missiles and other armaments, was hit. We are developing intermediate range and shorter range missiles in response to U.S. plans to produce and deploy intermediate range and shorter range missiles in Europe and the Asia Pacific region. Now, why does America keep escalating? They keep poking the damn bear. They want to place long range and intermediate range missiles in Europe, aimed at Russia, in the Asia Pacific, aimed at China, poking the bear. Okay, let's continue. We believe that the United States made a mistake by unilaterally destroying the INF Treaty in 2019 under far-fetched pretext. Today, the United States is not only producing such equipment, but as we can see, it has worked out ways to deploy its advanced missile system in different regions of the world, including Europe, doing training exercises for its troops. Moreover, in the course of these exercises, they are conducting training for using them. As a reminder, now he keep giving you warning after warning, but the United States, they just refuse to listen to these warnings. As a reminder, Russia has voluntarily and unilaterally committed not to deploy intermediate range and shorter range missiles until U.S. weapons of this kind appear in any region of the world. To reiterate, we are conducting combat tests of the Orezhnik missile system in response to NATO's aggressive actions against Russia. Our decision on further deployment of intermediate range and shorter range missiles would depend on the actions of the United States and its satellites. So what he's telling you at this point, that it's an eye for an eye. You make a move, they make a move on the chessboard. But he did say that every move that the United States make, Russia is going to mirror that move. Let's continue. We will determine the targets during further tests of our advanced missile systems based on the threats to the security of the Russian Federation. We consider ourselves entitled to use our weapons against military facilities of those countries that allow the use Okay, let me back up. We consider ourselves entitled to use our weapons against military facilities of those countries that allow to use their weapons against our facilities. And in case of an escalation of aggressive action, we will respond decisively and mirror in like manner. I recommend that this is why I say Donald Trump can't bring this war in Ukraine to an end. He specifically states right here, listen to this, because Donald Trump can't magically get in office with a stroke of a pen and bring the war in Ukraine to an end. He's not going to be able to do it. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This is a war between the ruling classes of the world. Okay. I recommend that the ruling elites of the countries that are hatching plans to use their military contingents against Russia seriously consider this. It goes without saying that when choosing, if necessary, And as a retaliatory measure, targets to be hit by systems such as Oryzhnik on Ukrainian territory, we will in advance suggest that civilians and citizens of friendly countries residing in those areas leave danger zones. So he's going to give them a warning. Before they launch, before Russia launches its attack in response to an aggressive act by the United States and NATO, they're going to go through the proper channels to make sure that civilians are evacuated from those areas there, right? So he says, it goes without saying that when choosing, if necessary, and as a retaliatory measure, targets to be hit by systems such as Oryzhnik on Ukrainian territory, we will in advance suggest that civilians and citizens of friendly countries residing in those areas leave danger zones. We will do so for humanitarian reasons. See, America wouldn't do this. They'll just launch their missiles, regardless of, the casualties or the collateral damage involved. We will do so for humanitarian reasons, openly and publicly, without fear of countermoves coming from the enemy, who will also be receiving this information. So they're going to inform the enemy. Why without fear? Because there are no means of countering such weapons today. Missile attack targets at a speed of Mach 10, which is 2.3 to 3 kilometers per second. 2.3 or 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. Air defense systems currently available in the world and missile defense systems being created by the Americans in Europe cannot intercept such missiles. It is impossible. I would like to emphasize once again that it was not Russia, but the United States that destroyed the international security system. And by continuing to fight, cling to its hegemony, they are pushing the whole world into a global conflict. We have always preferred and are ready now to resolve all disputes by peaceful means. But we are also ready for any turn of events. If anyone still doubts this, make no mistake, there will always be a response. So this is what President Putin, he delivered his message, but he wasn't only speaking to the Russian people when he delivered this message. He was speaking to peoples of the world. He was particularly speaking to the populations of the West. Russia never wanted this conflict. They've said time and time again that they are willing to sit down and negotiate. Yeah, it's over there for you. They said time and time again that they are willing to resolve the conflict in Ukraine diplomatically. But being that the West is so belligerent and so hell-bent on maintaining this international rules-based system or order, we know what it is, that Russia was left with no choice but to launch the SMO. So where do we go from here? What I do know is that the attackers won't be a game changer. 6 out of 6 were shot down. Some of the most advanced, short-range, what they call effective missiles of the West, Storm Shadows as well as the attackers, they were shot down by Russian air defense systems. So where do we go from now? Are we going to continue to escalate until all-out war is declared by both sides? I mean, only the people in the United States can answer that, because, the ruling elite in Europe, they're going to kowtow to the ruling elite of America. Europe is incapable of fighting a war against Russia on its own. The entire world knows this. The Europeans know this. So they have to have the backing of the elites in America. So are they going to continue to escalate? The attackers were a failure. Americans and British citizens or commanders, military officials. They were operating the batteries that were shot into Russia. They were all shot down. Russian weapon systems have been outperforming Western weapon systems since the beginning of this war. The illusion of Western technological supremacy, the supremacy of Western weapons were shattered at the beginning of the war. And it's only gotten worse. The Russians, their missile systems have gotten better. And yesterday they unleashed, or the day before yesterday, they unleashed a new missile system. And like I said, I saw the impacts, and I couldn't even count. You know, I couldn't say 0.1, and you know, the impact had already occurred. So I think the West is going to continue to escalate. I mean, they have no choice. They have no choice. They have to escalate. I mean, they're losing power. And power doesn't just concede itself. When you're dealing with bloodthirsty people like the West, they're going to have to be militarily defeated. And that's unfortunately, that's the direction in which we're going. World War III has already started. Sooner or later, Russia will attack NATO. It means they're going to be forced into the position. But we're going to take this up at a later date. And on that note, I'm going to end this video. And I think I'm going to start getting into reading Strategic Alliance. You know, like I said in my last video, I'm going to dedicate time specifically to reading Strategic Alliance. So, I look forward to that. So, peace out, people.